So I'm going to read Genesis 33, and I'm going to comment as we go today, just to break up the way we do this. So Genesis 33, 1 to 11, to begin with. Jacob looked up, and there was Esau coming with his 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the two female servants. He put the female servants and their children in front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph in the rear. He himself went on ahead and bowed down to the ground 7 times as he approached his brother. But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Then Esau looked up and saw the woman and children. "Who are these with you?" he asked. Jacob answered, "They are the children God graciously has given your servant." And the female servants and their children approached and bowed down. Next, Leah and her children came and bowed down. Last of all came Joseph and Rachel, and they too bowed down. Esau asked, "What's the meaning of all these flocks and herds I met?" "To find favor in your eyes, my lord," he said. But Esau said, I already have plenty, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself." "No, please," said Jacob. "If I have found favor in your eyes, accept this gift from me. For to see your face is like seeing the face of God, now that you have received me favorably. Please accept the present that was brought to you, for God has been gracious to me, and I have all I need." And because Jacob has insisted, Esau accepted it. And Jacob is exhausted after a night's wrestling, but blessed by God. He's very much focused on God now, although he's limping. And in the aftermath of this night-long struggle, suddenly he's confronted with Esau, and not just with Esau, but with Esau and 400 men. And Jacob responds by putting the children with their respective mothers and lining them up in reverse order of importance, the servants and their children, and then his lesser loved wife and her children, and then his most loved wife and her son. And it sounds, oh no, Jacob's back to his manipulating and deceiving again, and he's sort of hedging his bets, and if Esau reacts wrongly to the front ones, he can get his most loved away. But no, this is not the case of putting the expendables at the front, so that those at the back can flee, because Jacob himself goes on ahead of the whole crowd. He puts himself in the place of danger, which is so unusual for Jacob from previous experience. And while walking to Esau, he bows 7 times, the formal greeting given to a great ruler. And whatever fear must have been in Jacob's heart as he's been terrified of this moment must have been heightened as suddenly Esau breaks out in a run towards him and leaps on him. But the fear quickly turns to wonder as Jacob realizes that this is a hug, and that Esau is kissing him and weeping. None of that sort of intimacy from their growing up. And now Jacob weeps too. And Esau now notices the children and asks who they are, and Jacob explains they're God's grace gift to himself, Esau's servant. And the women and children now come and bow down in reverse order of importance. And Esau then asks the meaning of all the flocks and herds he's already met, and Jacob explains that they're a gift to seek Esau's favor, and Esau turns them down. He doesn't need them, but Jacob pleads for him to receive them, not to earn favor, but as a token of favor granted. And the face of Esau he so feared has become the face of God, a demonstration of God's grace now that he has received him favorably. And Jacob presses, explaining God's blessing and urging Esau to take it, and he does. And Esau's receiving of the gift indicates that they're now fully reconciled. The relationship is put right. And so there's this beautiful reconciliation in verses 1 to 11. But no sooner are they reconciled, verses 12 to 17, we see that they part. Let's read these verses. And then Esau said, "Let us be on our way. I'll accompany you." But Jacob said to him, "My Lord knows that the children are tender, and that I must care for the ewes and cows that are nursing their young. If they're driven hard just one day, all the animals will die. So let my Lord go on ahead of his servant, while I move along slowly at the pace of the flocks and herds before me, and the pace of the children, until I come to my Lord in Seir." Esau said, "Then let me leave some of my men with you." "But why do that?" Jacob asked. "Just let me find favor in the eyes of my Lord." So that day Esau started on his way back to Seir. Jacob, however, went to Succoth, where he built a place for himself and made shelters for his livestock. This is why the place is called Succoth. Esau is so delighted to have Jacob back and anticipates journeying with Jacob back home as a happy family. But Jacob explains that he won't be able to keep up with all his children and young animals, and says to Esau, "Go on ahead and I'll meet you in Seir." Esau offers to leave some men as an escort, but Jacob declines that too. He just wants Esau's favor. So Esau goes home and Jacob doesn't follow him. Was he lying? Is he still deceiving? It's difficult to know from the passage here. But actually Jacob's doing the right thing. Whether he's doing it in the wrong way is another matter. You see, Seir is in Edom. It's not in the promised land of Canaan. It's not in the place where God has sent Jacob back to. And so Jacob goes back to Succoth and builds a place for himself. And so although Jacob and Esau are reconciled and the past is put behind them, they don't actually share a future together. And I think that's a very powerful picture, because Esau has chosen not to seek God's blessing. He's married pagan wives. He's very much put himself out of the people of God, whereas Jacob, by grace, God's grace, has been pursued and brought back. And so although they are, Jacob seeking to live at peace with his brother, and they're reconciled in those kind of familial relationships, they're going to be living apart because their spiritual destinies, their spiritual heartbeats are different. And that's a helpful picture for us, isn't it? That we ought to live at peace with the people around us. But as Christians, we don't belong here. We are citizens of heaven. We are going to a far country. We're traveling through. And while we long for people to join us on that journey, we are not traveling with them to their destination. And I just found that a very powerful picture this morning of how we live in this world. So we've seen the brothers reconciled. We've seen them parting now. Finally, in verses 18 to 20, we see Jacob settling. In verse 18, after Jacob came from Paddan Aram, he arrived safely at the city of Shechem in Canaan and camped within sight of the city. For 100 pieces of silver he bought from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, the plot of ground where he pitched his tent. There he set up an altar and called it El Elohe Israel. Jacob is now back in the promised land, having left an empty-handed deceiver. He met the Lord at Bethel and received the covenant promises, but he continues to try to do things in his own strength, and he couldn't be allowed to return to the promised land as Jacob. He had to become Israel. And the Lord is not just committed then to his promises to us to take us safe home. He is also committed to our personal growth in grace and will make us limp if need be to bring us to faith in his grace alone. And Jacob now is able to buy his own plot of land, and the first thing he does, having done that, is to set up an altar proclaiming that God is the God of Israel. The mighty one is the might of Israel. As he settles in this provision of God, he wants all the glory to be to God. And may that be the case in our lives too.